Bodies of more civilians murdered by the Russians found in liberated Kharkiv Oblast village.
Here's a summary of the article.
Kharkiv Oblast Zaliznichna victims. 9 November 2022 photo from Kharkiv Regional Police. Ukrainian investigators have already uncovered the bodies of a number of civilians whom the Russians killed, with the number expected to rise in the coming days and weeks. In Zaliznichna, a village in the Kharkiv Oblast, 4 bodies have been exhumed, after they were shot by the Russians. The Kharkiv Regional Police reported on 12 September that 4 bodies had been discovered the day before. Serhiy Bolvanov, head of the Kharkiv Regional SID, reported that, back on 27 February, 2 of the civilians had been shot in the head by the Russians while at home. First tortured victims exhumed after Ukraine drives Russian invaders out of Kharkiv Oblast village. Russia has been bombing and shelling civilian targets, including schools, hospitals, and residential buildings in Kharkiv and the Oblast since the beginning of its full-scale invasion.
This post received a score of 8,800, with an upvote ratio of 97%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
That explains why Russia is claiming torture in liberated territory. They know it's no longer possible to hide their cruel deeds, so they try to pin them on Ukraine.
Because it makes total sense for Ukrainian soldiers to kill Ukrainian citizens after liberating a zone that was occupied by Russian soldiers.
It does in the mind of the Russians. Because otherwise they would tell fellow Ukrainians about how great it was to live on Russia and the bliss of having Putin as a leader. They'll believe it because they're ready to believe their own leaders would sow things like that.
They believe it because they know their leaders will do it. Putin literally said anti-war Russians would be spat out like midges?
They know because their leaders have done that.
When Zelensky wrote, "Cold, hunger, darkness and thirst are not as scary and deadly for us as your friendship and brotherhood," that's not some sort of rhetoric, that's just the fact, a horrible one.
We should be peppering the inboxes of apologists like Noam Chomsky, Oliver Stone and Roger Waters with articles like this, who to this day are trying to convince others that fighting back was the morally incorrect option, and still cry out for an alternate reality where appeasing Putin's warped worldview doesn't lead to the genocide of Ukrainians.
Send them to Kharkiv Oblast to help unearth the graves of Russia's victims. Well, Chomsky is probably too old, but Waters and Stone could probably still use a shovel for an hour or two.
That's probably for the best. After all they've been through, I wouldn't want to inflict proximity to Noam Chomsky on the already mistreated people of Kharkiv. Bucha was hellish, and what we find in the rest of the zones that are liberated isn't going to be any different. We're human, so things don't stay in our mind from day to day, so we're about to get a refresher on just what barbarians the Russian invaders are in very graphic details. I know we won't remember the specifics, but I hope we all remember the sentiment and what Russia should have to make amends and pay for doing while professionals keep track of the details. I don't want to see this swept under the carpet in my lifetime, let alone the next decade.
Russians are cowards now. They prefer to kill women and children over other war fighters. Like all cowards.
Kinda reminds you of the mass graves the Nazis left behind when they were defeated, doesn't it? What Russian can do this and still eat up the Kremlin propaganda that Ukraine are the Nazis?
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.